Toby Winters could hardly sleep. The last week had been a complete nightmare for him. Whether it be getting kidnapped by communists for 6 whole days, or being kidnapped by insane Nazis in the middle of Firo, Toby was not having a good week. After going through some of the most traumatic experiences any person could possibly go through, one would think that he'd have a family to turn to. Unfortunately, this was not true for Toby. His family had long forgotten about him, abandoning him when he was a child. His foster parents weren't much better, physically assaulting him for disobedience on a daily basis. These struggles hurt him, but it also built him into the man he was today. To stand up to his parents, he learned kickboxing and Muay Thai. To get out of the poverty of his childhood, he took his education in his hands, graduating with a master's degree from Banco Falls University at age 18, while he was still attending classes at Freedom Miller High. He did it with the help of the people of Banco Falls. He was so grateful, he refused an offer to study at Stanford for his doctoral degree, and instead took a secret job from Mayor Thomas Clark as a groundwater hydrologist. He had achieved wealth, brilliancy, and respect. Yet he was miserable. Although he felt guilt for it, part of him was glad Mayor Clark had kicked the bucket. Mayor Clark controlled every aspect of his life, being clearly only interested in power. Toby thought his life would be better after what had happened, but clearly he was wrong. The terrorists had scarred him both physically and mentally. What he saw there could not be erased from his mind. But it gets worse. The new mayor, George Barrington, had increased his workload tenfold as a way of reprimanding Toby for being gone from work for a week. He couldn't tell anyone what happened. It was too dangerous, with it being very likely they wouldn't believe him. Besides, he had no alibi, no irrefutable evidence. No one shared the experience with him, except Gus, the 15-year-old kid he saved from a group of teenage delinquents. But he was too young to bring into this. He needed to stay safe, away from the power struggle of these extreme ideologies. On Thursday, April 14, Toby Winters returned to the lab. To his surprise, it was good as new. The once rusting metal and blinding lights that had consumed the place in the past were nowhere to be found. Instead, the lab was perfectly lit, with clean floors and equipment. The walls were freshly painted white and smelled of redwood pine. In the middle of the lab, by his main research quarters, a note was left. It read, "Toby, I understand we started off on the wrong foot. These recent attacks have had an effect on everyone, including myself. I understand you might have felt unsafe returning to the lab. But trust me when I tell you this, you have nothing to fear. There is work that needs to be done, so as a token of my gratitude, I have renovated your entire lab. I am excited to work with you." The note was signed, George Barrington. Toby sighed. While Mayor Clark hadn't done anything this nice for him, he knew it came with ill intention. It was always about the money, the water, the new element that could change the world. He began his work, but little progress was made. He had a painful feeling in his stomach. Once Toby was done with his 14-hour workday, he began his walk home at 11 p.m., as his gray 2007 Toyota Camry was destroyed in the April 4th attacks. But his car wasn't the only thing destroyed in the attacks. His confidence took a hit as well. Toby made sure to avoid all unsafe and backwaters roads in Banco Falls. To be kidnapped a third time would just be embarrassing. But even with his best efforts, Toby ended up taking a wrong turn, and ended up surrounded by 2 massive gray walls. Even in the dark of night, he could read out the words written on the walls: "Join the revolution. Destroy the bourgeoisie. Follow VB. VB." The name of the communist working undercover to spy on the Nazi Mr. Walter said he worked for. Toby realized he wasn't lying, VB was the leader. A chill went down his spine. VB had caused his 6 days of suffering and sold him to the Nazis. Who could he possibly be? Toby heard a group of men talking in Russian. He ducked behind a trash can. To ito? On Politsky, one of them with a black hat said. Net, Tolkeo Belka, Kotoryutai Slyshal, the other responded. Yamogudokazat, Toktotu Nas Lashayat, the black hat man exclaimed. The black hat Russian made his way to the trash can. He looked Toby in the eye and knocked the trash can over, revealing him to the rest of the communist. Kill the capitalist spy, they all yelled in anger. As they all approached him with fury, Toby was not ready to get up. He was armed and knew how to do the Muay Thai roundhouse kick. Hold it, a man with an American accent yelled. The Russians listened immediately, pulling back and let the American come through. He smiled at Toby. The dimly lit street revealed his glasses and crooked teeth. You look new around here. I know these Russians can be intimidating, but they're just well-meaning. Anyone can join VB's revolution, even Americans like me and you. Lenin's dream is alive and we feel it every day when capitalist pigs like Mayor Clark bleed, the man said with passion. You mention, VB. Yes, the leader of our movement. He's also American, he's actually from Banco Falls himself. I'm his personal assistant Sylvester. Nice to meet you, Sylvester. Are you excited for his speech? Toby squinted in confusion. Speech? Sylvester chuckled. Yes, I assume that's why you're here, that's why we're here. He's speaking in a few minutes. Toby forced a smile. Yes, that's why I'm here. I just spaced out. There Toby was. Forced to wait. He couldn't leave, the communists would kill him if they found out who he truly was. Toby was certainly curious to see this VB in person. Even so, he needed to stay as hidden as possible. VB must know who he is, and why he is so important. After only a few minutes of waiting, the crowd of about 6 dozen communists began to erupt into cheers. It must be VB. Toby barely got to take a look at him, but his appearance did surprise. VB only seemed to be in his early 20s, looking almost as boyish as him. VB waited for the crowd to calm down and began his speech. Workers of the world. Proletariats of Banco Falls. My loyal followers. Lenin's dream thrives every single day. Mayor Clark is dead. Malco Insurance struggles in the aftermath of our attacks. The Blackfield family has lost 70% of their wealth. The days of capitalism are numbered. The days of injustice are over. With your help, we can unleash communism across the entire globe. For US. The crowd all cheered. Toby joined in to blend in with the crowd. But his cheers were obviously fake. Toby's mind lingered on the speech. It felt wrong. Something was off. Work still needs to be done. Mayor Barrington proves himself to be just as corrupt. With your help, we can beat him too. The crowd all cheered at VB. This time even Toby's cheer was a little more jovial. VB's personal assistant, Sylvester, walked up to VB and whispered in his ear. VB smiled with joy. Comrade Sylvester just told me something that really warmed my heart, VB said to the crowd. We have a new member of our group, who came to see us for the very first time. Whoever this is, may I speak to you? Toby's heart raced in panic. He was talking about him. Toby tried to hide, but the group of happy communists pushed Toby to the front of the alley, where VB could get a good view of him. Toby sweated profusely as VB glared down at him with his piercing green eyes. VB stared with confusion. Toby Winters. As soon as those words came out of VB's mouth, Toby ran for it. The communist chased after him. For whatever reason, VB called them off. The last thing Toby saw of VB was him quickly calling someone on his phone. Toby ran all the way to his luxury apartment, but it didn't matter. He needed to get out of this town. He started to pack his bag, hoping to catch the next airplane ride out of Banco Falls. But as he packed his bags, he noticed something. Everything was moved around, especially the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator to find the gallon of milk he bought only a day prior was already almost empty. His leftover Swedish meatballs were eaten, along with an entire baguette. Someone was in his house. Toby looked around but saw nothing. The lights then went out. Darkness fell upon the entire apartment. The only source of light was from the moon. In the moonlight, he saw a silhouette of a man's body. He got out his gun and pointed it at the figure. "Who is it? Are you VB?" Toby yelled in fear. The man chuckled. "No, but he is a good friend of mine." "So you're a communist?" "No." "Are you a Nazi?" "No." Toby pushed the gun in the man's face. "Then who are you? Tell me or I'll shoot." The man laughed hysterically. "That is not your concern. Besides, you and I both know there are no rounds in that gun." Toby knew that couldn't be true, but he looked and the man was right. Toby raced towards the door in horror, but Toby's heart ended up sinking deeper when he realized the door was locked. The lights turned on again and accepted his fate. As Toby waited for his imminent death, he realized the man wasn't coming to kill him. He walked to the kitchen, where the man was eating a can of Pringles, making a mess like a slob. The man was old, fat, and white-bearded. After ingesting a few more potato chips, the man smiled at Toby. "Mr. Winters, what a nice apartment you have here," the man said as he opened the refrigerator door and grabbed the rest of the milk. "What are you doing here? Who are you?" Toby asked with frustration. "Always quick to the point, are you?" The man chuckled. "I'm just a guest in your restaurant." "Who the hell are you? Where are your manners, my friend?" The man drank a sip of his milk. "You can call me Mr. Dominus." Mr. Dominus continued to drink the milk as Toby looked in confusion. "You said you were friends with VB?" Toby asked. "I'm friends with a lot of people." Mr. Dominus poured himself another glass of milk. "VB was a student of mine." "A student? As will you be, Mr. Winters." "What?" Mr. Dominus laughed so hard he choked on his milk. "For someone so smart, you are very dumb." "What? It's always you asking the questions." "You are very curious, so let me explain." Mr. Dominus walked out of the kitchen. "VB is one of my 5 students. I trained all of them to gain power and influence. To control a society above all else. So you're one of these power-hungry nutjobs like Mayor Clark. Funny that you mention him. He was also one of my students, in fact my very first. He was like a son to me." Mr. Dominus looked Toby dead in the eyes. "But he got greedy. He screwed me over and betrayed his teacher, his master. He tried to control underground water, but now only he is underground. 27 bullets in his head. Ha ha ha." Toby stared at him with disgust. "You're a monster." "Hardly. I'm only human after all." "So you control both the communists and the government." "How could that be true?" "The government." Mr. Dominus groans. "No longer. George Barrington is Clark's successor. As you know, he's not much better. But you control the communists, yet you aren't communist. Why would they listen to you?" Toby asked. "They don't listen to me. They listen to VB, who listens to me." "Why would VB listen to you?" "He wants a workers' revolution." Mr. Dominus almost died from laughing. "VB is not a communist. He's an imposter pretending to be a communist, just like I trained him to be. I trained all 5 of my students to control an aspect of the city. VB controls the labor, Clark controlled the government. One of them is an economist who controls the state of the economy, while my youngest student of DuPont Heritage controls Banco Fall's powerful elite. Mr. Walter controlled the far right and the neo-Nazis." "Wait, what?" Toby yelled. "You trained Mr. Walter?" "Yes. Unfortunately, he did believe what he was preaching and genuinely thought he would become the next Adolf Hitler. Luckily, before I had the chance to send someone to kill him, that kid I think his name was Bloodshot, yeah, he killed him. You were there to see it? Mr. Dominus walked closer to Toby and put a hand on his chest. That's why I've come here. 2 of my 5 students have died in the last week. It's time you left this stupid job with the corrupt Mayor Barrington, and begin to work for me. Become my student. It's time for you to live life better. Toby rolled his eyes. You're a moron and evil. I know how to live life perfectly fine. I graduated college while everyone was graduating high school. So you know all about life because you went to college early. I'd say someone who was studying advanced college science in high school has their life together. That's hilarious, Mr. Dominus chuckled. I was once like you. I was top of my class, got the best grades. I thought I had all the knowledge I needed to live life. I thought I was superior to everybody. But as life went on, as I faced hardship and strife, the lesson I learned is how little I know. Life is complex. It's rough, rugged, unpredictable. It is not a class you can master in college. To think otherwise is the pretense of knowledge. Mr. Dominus stared at Toby in the eyes, smiling maliciously. Besides, Mr. Winters, you don't really have a choice. Mr. Dominus pulled out a small, old-fashioned pistol. I know everything about you. I watch you every day. There is no escaping me, even out of Banco Falls. If you refuse, you will be shot. If you accept and break the deal, I will send someone to track you down and kill you. I'm the only reason you're still alive, but I can easily be the reason you're dead. So what do you say? Toby's heart raced with fear. He nodded his head and shook Mr. Dominus's hand. You made a good decision, Mr. Dominus said as he began to put on his coat he had set down in Toby's living room. In time you will control the scientific world, but for now continue your work for Mayor Barrington. Discover his secrets and report them to me. Do not betray me, or you'll end up like Clark. Is that understood? Yes, Toby responded weakly. Mr. Dominus hugged Toby. You will be a great student, I just know it. The New World Order is beginning to form. Novus Ordo Seclorum will spread across the world. Mr. Dominus began to walk out the door. One more thing, Mr. Winters. Yeah, what? Toby asked, confused. Gus Blue is the key to everything. With that, Mr. Dominus left Toby alone. Luckily, Toby was able to get to sleep that night. Unfortunately, he would eventually have to wake up.